This is part 3 with Saleena Karim, the author of Secular Jinnah in Pakistan. Hope you have enjoyed part 1 and 2 with her. Please let me know what you think of these interviews with her and any other interview on Light Up Vichwa podcast. Send me your feedback and comments on lightupvichwa.com, and I look forward to hearing from you. Take care. So, what would we say to this world we live in about things of this nature? Like any lesson to be learned from here? I mean,
Yeah, that's a good question. The lesson to learn really is to say that words are all powerful, and we have to be extremely careful how we use them. I think I read once before that the final task of philosophy is to master linguistics. It's considered now the final task of philosophy. And the reason for that is because it's known now that words are extremely powerful, and how they're interpreted individually and within various nations and within various religious groups or ideological groups. All of that, where philosophy is now looking for some sort of universal way to communicate, because there have been so many problems and they have tended to come down to words. And this is really, well, it's an amazing example, possibly the best example in recent times of how powerful a misquote can be, especially when you consider how it has been used again and again, and it's been accepted in scholarship. It's not that it's been, it's just being taken among the ordinary writers and commentators. It's been taken to the top. It has come, like I say, and also, actually, I'll just to kind of
go ahead.
emphasize this to kind of further answer your question. There are three ways, up to three ways, that this quote has been used, and the way that the secularists have produced that argument combination to kind of cause confusion, albeit a lot of them don't mean to. It's just the way it has happened. One is that it's had a effect on constitution making. It has influenced attitudes. It has influenced the way that people want to tackle the constitution or change the constitution. As there is a story in my book, again, which I won't go into here, but there is a story to do with someone's attempt to change the constitution. And as an early historical example, and it has been ongoing, the sovereignty resting in the people line has been explicitly used to undermine the objectives resolution of Pakistan, because there it's mentioned about sovereignty resting in God. So it's always said that, look, well, we're talking about sovereignty resting in the people according to Jinnah, and we've kind of defied his wishes by mentioning sovereignty resting in God, when in fact Jinnah simply didn't use that phrase in the first place. So that's part of it. So there's a constitutional problem, and there is also an educational problem. As I'm sure you may be familiar, there is a real problem in Pakistan with the education curricula, especially when it comes to history and the ideological part of history. And there is such a strange thing to observe now, that in light of this problem, that you can see that why there are people pulling on one side for a more secular curriculum, and then you've got people on the other side, no, we want a more ideological curriculum. So it has affected that. I've seen it being used expressly to kind of say no, this needs to be removed, or that needs to be removed. Also, it's affected the popular culture, if you like, and the media as well. It's affected that, because what happens is there are so many discussion shows, TV panel shows, all those kinds of shows, and every few months, whenever there's an important date, whether it's Independence Day or Ghazi birthday, or his death anniversary, or you name it, anything to do with Ghazi, there is this tendency for everyone to start talking about, oh, well, what was the Pakistan idea? And inevitably the same old arguments keep coming up. And the Munir Quote is a part of that set of old same stuff coming up again and again. And this is, it's only adding to the problem. So you've got this educational problem, you've got this constitutional problem, and then you've got this general media problem. It's everywhere, it's a lie reproduced again and again until it becomes a fact. And to kind of answer your question on, well, what are we going to, how is this, is it going to make a difference? How is it going to make a difference? I think because it is the reality, sooner or later, I'm a little bit, philosophical about it. I say that sooner or later it will catch up and it'll take over. And the good news is my book has already been used as a reference in several people's PhD or master's theses, and in fact one thesis actually was focused entirely on the contents of my book. So this is very heartening to me. I find that to be very positive, a very positive outcome, and it kind of validates my belief that sooner or later it is going to come out anyway. Another place it has had the effect, and probably the biggest effect, is in the academia. It's become an accepted standard argument throughout the world. So wherever you find South Asian studies, you will always find this quote being used to describe a secular jinnah. And actually, while we're on the subject, and the other thing I would like to mention, actually, before I forget to mention it, is this concept of the categories, because I talk about this in my book, that there are 3 known images of jinnah in the academia. So there is the religious ideologue, there is the secular liberal, and then there is the one that's in between, and everybody knows it, or and it's beginning to gain attention again recently, that perhaps there is a middle ground and he was neither nor, and that's called the synthesis category, or a hybrid category. I've seen it now being referred to as well, and that's this idea of having secularism and Islam, kind of the best of both. The trouble with that is, to go back to Iqbal, he kind of said, well, Islam brooks no division. There's this concept of unity with matter and spirit. There's no such thing as a division. So the third group, they want to take the best of Islam, the best of secularism in their view. So they're not afraid to quote all of Jinnah's speeches. As far as they're concerned, they are comfortable quoting everything. So they're comfortable quoting the Munir Quote, whereas the religious conservatives would not be comfortable quoting the Munir Quote. They are comfortable with quoting the statements against theocracy and the statements calling advocating Islam. They say we have no problem with this because Jinnah was neither nor. He kind of believed in a fusion. He was happy to kind of take the best of both. The problem with that is that if you actually pay close attention to, especially if you bring in Iqbal's point of view, and look at how Jinnah was presenting his argument, he never once talked about synthesis. He never said we're going to bring in the best of something and the best. He just talked about Islam the whole time. And he placed a huge emphasis on Muslim unity. He had abandoned what he was always known for in the beginning. In the beginning, he was known for being a ambassador of Hindu-Muslim unity. He was known for that. It was a kind of an honorary title that had been given to him. But once he abandoned his post as that kind of ambassador, he focused entirely on Muslim unity. And whenever he spoke of Muslim unity, and this is key, whenever he spoke of Muslim unity, he spoke of it as political unity. He spoke of it as regional unity, because there were, of course, all these problems with different provincial interests, conflicting interests. And then there was the religious unity, and he was above sectarianism. He was very keen to advance this idea and put it in the minds of people that if you're voting for the Muslim League, you're voting for a as a Muslim, and not as as a certain caste or a certain sect of Islam or from a certain part of India. You are just going to be there as a Muslim. And in fact, it was even on a census form. The people were being asked to put down what group they belong to, what community they belong to, and he said your answer should be for religion, Muslim, and nothing else. Do not mention your sectarian affiliations in your head. We're trying to delete them from our political consciousness, if you like. So that is something that the synthesis category has not really grabbed hold of. They haven't understood it, so they haven't put any emphasis on this section of Jinnah speeches, and they are so important. They are what actually makes it possible for you to say, oh yeah, this is the difference between a non-sectarian view of Islam versus a synthesis view, a hybrid view. So that's why I say there is actually a fourth category, and it has not been appraised yet in academia.
My next question is what is the value of gratitude in your life?
Oh yeah, gratitude is something that I believe in very strongly. Day to day, my gratitude is not really so much with the things I'm doing or have achieved or anything, even though I am grateful for those. I tend not to give them active thought. The things I'm grateful for are more to do with personal things, and so for instance, my home, and especially my home, because we're very, very, fortunate that we have a very calm, peaceful home. So many families, they argue about things and fall out over silly things and never speak to each other again. But we're all living together, and there's no wars. Touch wood. There's never been any major disagreement. We've been very lucky. We always talk about we're so lucky to be united as a family, and I'm grateful for that every day. I really, really am.
Do you believe in afterlife?
Yes.
Okay. So you might write a book there too?
No, I won't, because it would fall under speculation. Despite, I very much go on facts. I do, of course, because I have a Muslim background anyway. From that perspective, I do, and I also do by choice, because not because it brings me comfort or those usual reasons. It's more to do with life making literally no sense unless we persist and we carry on in some other way after we officially, divorce from our bodies. I don't think there's any other way to look at it, just because I think that when you understand your relationship with your earthly body as being your cells, every cell in your body is borrowed and has been borrowed by some other creature or by some other thing in the universe at some point. When you understand it's a borrowing, and then on the one side, and then on the other side, you're very, very sure of yourself, to kind of borrow from old philosophy there about I think, therefore I am, Descartes. It's if you're aware of your individual being as being kind of an aspect of, not completely separate from, but essentially separate from the borrowed part of yourself, then it's impossible for you to believe that just because they get, they split, that ends and they're just batteries for it. I can't, to me that makes no sense. But that's just, obviously that's based on a lot of personal reflection and my obsessive thinking about Quran, because it's one of my favourite things to think about. Again, it's partly because of a religious background originally, but that book gives me new stuff every single day.
So have you found the purpose of your life?
Well, I always hesitate to answer this because, when you're discussing it with anybody, for purpose of life, I knew when I was young, under 10. By the time I was getting to about age 10, I was thinking about these things. So I knew I wanted to be a writer the moment I learned to read. I knew that. So at some point I decided when I grow up, I'm going to be an author. I'm going to write a book. And then as I developed a bit more, I kind of thought, well, I'm a woman and I don't see many women in history who've done anything that is so famous that, that she kind of stands equal to the men in that sense, with just sheer presence in history. And I'm sure it's not that there's a lack of talent, it's more a lack of acknowledgement, or maybe there is something going on. So I always thought, well, as I would like, if possible, as a woman, to do something in my life that is taken as seriously as it would if it were a man, but not so for me to be known not as a woman but as a person in that sense. Okay, that was number 2. And then the third one, I thought, well, there's not many but women philosophers, and ideally I'd like to do something for philosophy if I could in my life. So the second one was history, and the third is philosophy. And weirdly, so far, it's playing out. So I've written a novel, I've written a book, and I've written a book about history. And the third thing that I want to write about is something philosophical. It's actually it's religico-philosophical, if you like. It's from Quran. It's a discovery I've made in the Quran, and I mention it indirectly in my novel. I call it the cohesive ethics theorem, but I haven't written about it in any detail yet, mainly because I am so at a loss as to how to deal with it. It's a profoundly simple idea, but you know what they say about profundity and simplicity. It's massive, and I know that I need to be able to do it justice, and I'm not sure if I can, or or I hope I can. It's landed in front of me, so I'm duty bound to kind of deal with it. So let's see what happens. That's so for me. Yeah, I did know my purpose quite early on.
All right. So, any message of hope before we end?
Oh gosh, we are living in a very seemingly hopeless time. We've all seen what's been going on with the various political problems of this planet, ranging from all the things like Kashmir, to state the obvious, things like the detention of Uyghur Muslims in China, and all sorts of injustices.
Palestine.
Pardon?
Palestine.
Yeah, of course, ongoing. Yeah, and not only Muslim countries. There are other nations that are equally, going through all sorts of problems, and poverty is a major problem across the planet. How does one find hope when there's so much darkness? I think it's when we are reaching absolute darkness that we are forced. It's nothing else to it. We are forced to find our own means to create hope. And what that means is we have to start taking personal responsibility for what we do. If you ask the top philosophers of the world, what can we do about the climate, for instance, or the ecologists of the world, they will tell you, well, it's very easy, take personal responsibility and don't worry about, everyone has to do it. If you set an example in yourself, others will automatically follow. Human beings are very kind of herdish creatures. They kind of monkey see, monkey do mentality that we naturally seem to possess. So my message of hope is, if you want to bring hope into the world, you have to do it by setting an example, first and foremost. And when you set an example and the people around you then follow, then you're making a change. And that's the message of hope we have at all times, no matter how dark it gets. Okay.
Thank you. And my last question is, what lights you up? That's also hope.
Oh, didn't I make it obvious already? Yeah, my niece and nephew light me up. They make me laugh every day. They make me smile.
Okay.
They everything. I don't know if it's just this generation, but they just shock me every day with the stuff they come out with. So and they're another thing that keep my sanity alive, if you like, because of So it's probably my niece and nephew.
Thank you so much for your time. so much for your insights, all what you have shared. Really honored for that. So, would you like to say anything? Any feedback? Anything that you felt?
I'm very glad that I decided to do the interview. It's been a wonderful experience. It's had me thinking, even though I do think a lot about a lot of these questions that you asked me, it's good to kind of vocalize them and kind of say something about them, because when you speak, I think you do kind of then reassess what am I saying, why am I saying it, and so you got me to have a bit of an inner reflection again today. So yes, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that opportunity as well. So thank you very much, and I'm very, very glad that I said yes to this interview.
I'm very glad that you said yes too, because I am so.
No, I was going to say that you do have a way of you're a very approachable person, so I think that kind of goes in your favour, because I'm sure any number of journalists will probably have very mixed experience. They won't get a yes from 99% of their ideal candidates for interviews. It takes a certain personality to kind of be able to tune in to the individuals that you're trying to reach out to and you wish to have a conversation with. So I think it's to your credit that you've done this in such a way that it's very hard to kind of say, well, no, because you kind of make it very one, it's very casual and informal, and the other is that you do a nice range of questions, so you don't just focus on the subject, whether they're very serious or not, and you also go into other areas, and I think that kind of encourages people to think, oh, this appeals to my ego, I'll talk about that. So it does work. You do seem to have developed a very good process for this. So yeah,
thank you for that feedback. That's really helpful. Thank you, Saleena, for your time, your feedback, and everything. So
thank you very much.